Thanks for listening to radioai.ca. We begin with our main story, then we will explore the most relevant comments from over 2,000 contributors. After that, our legal expert, Judgy Judgerston, will weigh in. Enjoy.
In the halls of the Munich Security Conference, amidst a gathering of Western leaders, Vladimir V. Putin's unwavering resolve reverberated through the tense atmosphere. Despite extensive efforts, sanctions, condemnations, and containment strategies, Russia's president remained steadfast in his intent to disrupt the current global order. Recent developments underscored Russia's assertiveness. The capture of Avdiivka in Ukraine marked a significant territorial gain, albeit at a harrowing human cost. The tragic demise of Alexei Navalny within a remote Arctic prison served as a chilling reminder of Putin's intolerance towards dissent, particularly as elections loom. Moreover, revelations about Russia's purported plans to deploy a space-based nuclear weapon highlighted the regime's willingness to wield asymmetric power against adversaries. Against this backdrop of apprehension, European leaders grappled with a dual challenge: the imperative to bolster their own defense capabilities amid wavering U.S. support. Conversations at the conference repeatedly circled back to the pressing question of funding for Ukrainian arms, with uncertainty looming over Congress's ability to deliver timely assistance. Amid murmurs of a potential NATO withdrawal and Russia's unchecked ambitions, anxiety pervaded discussions. Despite assurances of unwavering commitment from American officials, tangible strategies remained elusive. The tragic circumstances surrounding Navalny's demise cast a somber shadow, yet viable avenues for meaningful action seemed scarce. While sanctions had been exhausted, the feasibility of seizing Russian assets abroad remained uncertain. Criticism mounted as attendees found the rhetoric outweighing substantive commitments. The absence of a cohesive plan and palpable European solidarity left many feeling underwhelmed. Amidst reflections on Russia's evolving threat, a sobering acknowledgement emerged. Europe's military modernization efforts lagged behind the escalating crisis. The urgency to fortify defenses resonated, yet translating rhetoric into action posed formidable challenges. As discussions turned to the possibility of future confrontations, the necessity for a proactive approach became increasingly apparent. With NATO's credibility potentially at stake, the imperative to prepare for looming threats gained prominence. However, political hurdles and dependence on U.S. support hindered decisive action. The fundamental lesson gleaned from Russia's resurgence was clear: complacency bred vulnerability. As Europe reckoned with the sobering reality of an imminent threat, calls for robust defense initiatives grew louder. The stark reminder from Ukraine's foreign minister underscored the human toll of delayed action, emphasizing the urgency for concrete measures to safeguard against encroaching aggression.
Now let's hear from our listeners.
Almost every available sanction has been imposed. Far from it. The EU has granted the Greek merchant fleets an exemption, and they are shipping Russian oil all over the planet. Similarly, the EU has exempted another source of Russia's wealth, the Belgian diamond market. This means that the EU is funding, in substantial part, Putin's war chest.
And we will pay with our lives throughout 2024 to give your defense industries time to ramp up production. It's really rather appalling that people did not see this as a potential outcome when Russia began invading Ukraine. I'm not a big proponent of the U.S. getting involved in other countries' affairs, but how can anyone, including Congress, not see that Ukraine is just the beginning? And the U.S. is just kidding themselves if they think that jeopardizing our relationship with our allies by, for example, suggesting that we would encourage Putin to do whatever he wants, will not make us weaker in the long run.
Trump has been, continues to be, and will continue to be compromised by Putin. Russians were the last folks willing to lend to Don, who is notoriously for going bankrupt. Now the whole MAGA is backing Putin because they follow their supreme leader. The situation is dire should he win.
There's nothing I like about Trump, but every now and then, he, perhaps by accident, makes sense. He was right to say that Europe needs to dedicate more spending to defend itself. For far too long, European countries were able to live under the American security umbrella and dedicate a high % of their budget to social welfare programs. This will be very hard to change as Europeans have taken for granted American support and have gotten used to the high standard of living these programs provide. The Russian threat is real. Putin won't stop because he can't stop. Time for the EU to wake up.
The U.S. has no plans to reduce their defense spending, so having Europe spend more allows the U.S. to potentially spend more in places other than Europe, but it will not change their overall defense budget. The increase in European spend on defense has nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
While Trump's comments as president certainly shocked Europe, it was the war in Ukraine that really provoked EU countries to ramp up their spending. And I agree that it is long past due. Trump can, however, take credit for making the EU start thinking about a world in which the EU and the US are not partners. The trust is gone over here. The shared values of our Western alliance are being questioned because of Trump. That's not good for the US or Europe.
Isolationism ultimately led to Pearl Harbor. The U.S. did not want to get involved in WTO, and others chose to risk it sensing American weakness because of their isolationist policies at the time, with dire consequences for them in the long run, but also at the cost of a lot of American lives. It's a simple and appealing narrative to turn away from the world. But that's seriously underestimating the nefarious motives of a lot of bad actors, and those people will push the boundaries if they sense weakness. History proves this. The U.S. is unique in its military deployments around the world. Like it or not, this is a major source of American power, and that has been something the U.S. was prepared to invest in. If the U.S. retrenches, their power and influence will diminish, and others with values Americans don't share will fill the gap. Then the U.S. will have major problems to retain that power, but no allies to call upon when they need it. The current narrative doing the rounds in populist Republican circles is very dangerous for world peace and stability.
The Europeans seem in some cases at least to have lived off the largesse of American taxpayers. And while I support a defense against Putin, it's about time that the wealthy nations of Western Europe paid their fair share. And at the risk of being called by that pejorative term isolationist, I wish that the welfare and quality of life of Americans would be put ahead of the interest of Europe. Is that really so terrible?
There is so much to unpack here. First, Americans don't really pay for defense. They pay to go to foreign nations and wage wars that enrich an upper class of war profiteers, arms manufacturers, think tanks, lobbyists, and investors. Foreign aid, sadly, is often used to enrich many of these same actors and to bankrupt smaller nations with onerous debts. Diplomacy in modern America seems to be viewed as a sign of weakness. Now the U.S. is demanding that Europe join in the arms race, a demand that will serve to enrich mostly American arms manufacturers. Europe hasn't been attacked. Europe is not circling the globe with military bases. And until recently, Europe had a cordial relationship with Russia. How is it that when there is a mass killing in the U.S., Americans understand that the solution is less guns circulating in the population, yet their answer to forever wars is to just create more arms?
The surest way to prevent war is to be prepared to win one. Doing so requires a competitive approach to force development and a consistent multi-year investment to restore warfighting readiness and field a lethal force.
All military spending in Europe is completely meaningless without a unified strategy. The important question that needs to be addressed is what the goals would be. It is clear in Ukraine, too, that spending without commitment to a strategic outcome is likely to fail to make significant impact and in the meantime does nothing but keep a grinding war alive.
Why are we talking about war so much lately? I am looking at my crystal ball now. Please tell me what we have in store for this year. The crystal ball is quite cloudy. Now I see it swirling. The fog is clearing up. I see Donald Trump bankrupt. I see him in court for months and months. It looks like the Republican Party is dropping him. Wait. There's a new charge, a serious one. Treason? Oh my God. Donald Trump is the target of an investigation into why so many American spies were executed in the field, shortly after Trump met Putin in Helsinki. Wait, Jack Smith has found a link to payments to Trump for classified information. Holy crap. Trump is connected with the scandal involving Putin buying the classified information. It is proven in court that Trump caused the assassination of over 15 agents. He gets the death penalty. Over the next couple weeks, Fox News rewrites history and starts a new propaganda narrative. Only this time they condemn Trump. The Republican Party undergoes a dramatic shift. The maggots are gone. Moscow Mitch retires to a nursing home. Years go by. In 2041, a young man from the Bronx stands on a soapbox in Times Square. He begins to address the crowd. People gather. He mesmerizes them. They seem to be particularly interested in his new slogan, "Make America Great Again." Democracy is fragile, folks. We must be vigilant, aware, and reactive to threats against it. Because without it, we seem to become uncivilized animals.